come read with me. I am reading now from my second book in the series, As I Recall. Took me a minute there to recall the title. Anyway, this is It Takes Two, a little bit me and a little bit you. And this is the chapter, The Meatloaf. This part I covered a little bit in the former book, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. Since Dell would be leaving around the third week in October, his sisters decided to throw Dell a surprise going-away party. I wasn't involved in too much of the planning because it was a big secret and they didn't want to arouse Dell's curiosity. On the day of the big event, Dell was across the alley visiting with his sister and her husband. I was at our little house making my own food preparations for the evening. Dell came into the house, walked over to me, and placed both hands over my breasts and started to walk back out the door. Bewildered, I wondered what was that all about. "What are you doing?" I asked him. "Just measuring," he stated matter-of-factly, and went on his way. Weird, I thought. Then I continued preparing the food for the party. Dell had some creative abilities. He had drawn some cartoon figures and even a picture of me from memory when we first met. When he was younger, he and his friend Roger would dig clay out of the banks of the San Joaquin River and create sculptures. As it turned out, the day of his going-away party, he was in his creative sculpting mood. His sister and her husband were in the process of making a large meatloaf for the party. Dell asked them why they were making such a large meatloaf for just the two of them. They had to come up with something quickly in order not to expose the surprise. "We're going to put most of it in the freezer for later," his brother-in-law said. Dell was satisfied with that answer, but he had a great idea. Why not sculpt the meatloaf like the torso of a woman? Thus the measuring. "No one is going to see it but us," he said. They tried to dissuade him, knowing that everyone was going to see it, but it only made him more determined to create the sculpture. When I found out what he had done, I was mortified. But there was nothing to be done about it. He would find out soon enough. Later that evening, when we arrived at his sister's address for the party, we walked in the door and everyone yelled, "Surprise!" Suddenly, I saw truth dawn on his face. He now knew the reason for the large meatloaf. He understood why his brother-in-law and his sister had tried to dissuade him. He ran into the kitchen where the food was laid out. There, in all its glory, was his beautiful sculptured meatloaf, looking, I am embarrassed to say, quite a bit like me. 21 days after our wedding, Dell was on his way to Vietnam. None of us knew if he would return to us. He gave me instructions to stay in the small rented apartment until he returned. The rent was reasonable, and he assumed that his family would look after me and ensure that I was cared for in his absence. His parents and younger sister and brother lived only a few blocks from us. Most of my family lived across town in Fresno, about 20 miles from Clovis. My older sister Dee lived a couple of blocks from our little house. She would also be close if I needed her. At $40 a month, I could certainly afford the rent, especially if I worked. The Army would soon be sending me an allotment of $90 a month. I should be okay. Once he arrived in a combat zone, the allotment would increase. He could leave for the war, safe in the knowledge that I would be in good hands. However, things don't always turn out the way you think they will.